deal with traffic in Norfolk. While I don't have any data to prove it, but this has to be one of the most unsafe cities in the region to travel. And you have a lot of vehicular and pedestrian safety that's at hand. We have high rates of speed of individuals riding through Norfolk. Some of the biggest perpetrators, I'd say, would be the trucks coming from the port, city vehicles, school buses, police cars, but also jaywalkers have a lot to do with the problem we have as far as pedestrian safety. And I met with the chief a couple of weeks ago, a week or so ago, to talk about this. And Marcus, I don't know whether you have to add some resources to increase the traffic bureau, but right now traffic is a nightmare in Norfolk, and we're going to continue to have fatalities until we make drivers recognize that in Norfolk you have to obey the speed. You have to stop running red lights, stop advancing lights. What I mean by that, thinking it's going to turn and go through it, and then so anyway, that's one of the biggest problems that we have in Norfolk, among other things. I also think it's time for Norfolk to do a disparity study. African Americans are failing miserably in regards to doing business with the city of Norfolk. The schools that we built, not only did we fail as far as subcontractors are concerned, but the citizens that live within walking distance of Diggs Park, and Bowling Park schools were denied the opportunity to work as laborers and other unskilled and semi-skilled positions as was promised by Mr. Ballard. Ballard has done an awful job. He's done an awful job in terms of minority participation. And had I known his job was going to be, his efforts were going to be this dismal, I certainly would not have supported him to get the contract. The courthouse, Slover, the Maine, Norfolk has failed miserably. So I'd like to see a disparity study, and I'd like to see Norfolk do better. And as far as another thing, we don't use public service announcement as efficiently as I would think would be helpful for us in terms of traffic, pedestrians going against the light, going in the middle of the block. And somehow, if we, in our water bill, well, the water bill is not generated through us, so, but somehow through TV and radio ads and on HRT buses, we need to make Norfolk a safer city for pedestrians as well as vehicular traffic. And we have all sorts of issues, but I think this is one issue that's paramount that we need to, get a handle on. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Two things. One, I mentioned it before. I'd like to see it on Bramilton, somewhere near where, when we close Town Point, whatever, Bush Street, what have you, and Waterside Drive for events. Couldn't at that same time, we could put bridge lift and pending down, and we're getting people get around to commit on the St. Paul Boulevard and the whole downtown backs up, and they could, go over to Campostella Bridge or take another route or do something. I mean, Great Bridge, they've got them when they have bridge lifts, and they've got it on the interstate coming in. It would seem to make sense that we could give people a heads up if there's a bridge lift at the Berkeley Bridge. We've got the Waterside Drive sign, you know what I'm talking about right there. You've got to be able to connect it right there so they can.
There is a bridge lift sign that if you're coming from Virginia Beach into Norfolk.
On the interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm talking about people who commit to get on St. Paul Boulevard and then find out, and then you've got congestion, and Marcus has got like 8, 10 traffic signals between St. Paul, between Bramilton and Waterside Drive, and that makes it work. But But seriously, I mean, something that, I mean, there are a lot of alternatives if you have the time to do it. Congest downtown. The other thing is, and I guess it's kind of a sore subject, but did our Economic Development Department, or did we steer Omar to this piece of property? Do we have anything involved there?
Sorry, Terry, I didn't get that.
That's pretty cool.
Do we have any involvement with that? I mean, I see this as being very similar to what happened to Ocean View. Even though his lawyer was obviously, should have told him about the problem. He should have known about it as a business person. But I mean, were we involved
He
in
shouldn't have bought the property.
getting it there? He shouldn't have bought it. Now, the lady shouldn't have moved into whatever elegant occasions down there without knowing.
Buying and renting is two different things.
He actually says because it was an auction, the option wasn't the same as it would be on a regular closing, is that
That would be
correct?
true.
Yeah,
That,
and
then
he
that
did
would
buy
be
it on
true.
auction, so I think,
Yes.
because I questioned why,
Bought it
Why
at
you would
auction.
buy it without a contingency, that would be true, because in most
Okay, so we
auctions,
didn't,
there's
my
no
answer is that we
contingency.
didn't steer him toward it. So that's a point, okay. The answer is no. Is that right?
That's right.
That's all.
just to add to the signage issue, could we add a sign on Hampton Boulevard going up toward Terminal before Little Creek that says Terminal eastbound is closed? There's really no sign. There's a sign that just says detour, but it doesn't say why. And helpful. So I have spoken some to Marcus and some individuals about this, but I was not pleased with the way or how the budget between the city council and school board evolved this year. I felt that there was very little interaction and discussion. Marcus and I have talked about maybe having a revenue, what is it called? Formula. And if anybody else is interested in that, I've talked actually to some school board members about it too. I'd like to see us maybe pursue that. Maybe we could talk about it at the retreat, if that's of an interest of yours. And then to further that, every year since I've been on school board, frankly, we have talked about there needs to be more discussion back and forth between city council and school board. And every year we get down to it and schedules can't be interwoven. And so I would like to see us right now sit down with Melinda and Rodney or whoever it takes and Kenny and get 4 meetings set or 6 meetings, however many you all think. Get them right now on everybody's agenda so there's no issue about, schedules getting in the way. Is that something that Brad's
That
here
makes
too?
sense.
And I would have waited till Kenny and Andrea came on, but they're gonna start getting into retreats, then we're gonna get into retreats. And then once again, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball on schedule, so. I mean, I'd be in favor of maybe 2 in the fall, 2 or 3 in the spring, I don't know. I mean, we can always make more, schedule more, and then if we don't feel there's a need, we could. And then, once again, which we've talked about before, have some very definitive agendas that we could talk about maybe at the retreat, as could school board talk about at their retreat, to come up with some issues that we all dance around that are more than just budgetary, but are more than the dog and pony shows that we typically have. So, does anybody else have that?
No, I agree with you. I think setting out a schedule is a good idea, and that way it's on everybody's calendar. I mean, if you're here and you can make it,
Right.
not you can make it, but if you're here, you can be here. If you have something that conflicts, you just have something that conflicts, but it still puts it out there and it puts it on the calendar. I think it should be done for economic development. I think it should be done for Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority as well,
But we really had very little interface with school board on this budget, and I felt like it didn't speak well for either of us. So.
Well, and it was interesting because after they did vote on their budget, there were comments made, if you read the article in the newspaper, about how we handled the budget with the school board. And I spoke with a few school board members and explained, that I was disappointed because, it seemed like it was thrown back on us that we did not fully fund their request. But there was that gap in between what you were telling us with information, including ADM numbers,
Right.
and then what they ended up voting on or not accepting. But we could have had that conversation in that period of time, including my own request to ask that we vote on our budget early so that they could vote on it, and they didn't even vote on it on the meeting after that. They waited a whole nother, I think it was a week and a half to vote on it. And so, you know, I think there was some definite miscommunication that was happening there, and also what assumptions were being made. And I had the opportunity to sit down with the school board member and show them the document that you gave us, the little bound document that had all the numbers in it. And the school board member told me, I wish I had that information. I wish it was so neatly laid out where money was coming from, that we have that, but they didn't even have that. So
We
I agree with
continue to
Terry
have
100%.
that disconnect between what we do with the overreach. We continue to have the disconnect on how they do ADM. And they have their arguments and we have ours, but we ought to be able to figure this out and then be consistent with how we do it going forward instead of one budgeting one way and one budgeting the other. And I just really would like us to try to figure this out a little better. I know it's a slippery slope, and I don't mean that people weren't well-intentioned and didn't work very hard on it. But it's always good to try to improve on a situation, and communication is good.
And also,
And
Terry,
I don't know that we always have to have meetings before city council. You know, it might be something, nice to have something that's a little more open-ended. I mean, at one point, Mr. Riddick even wanted us to do a one-day meeting. No, we need, that much. But anyway, whatever you all want to do, but let's get going on it.
and to discuss also, they have things that are going on at Norfolk Public Schools that we don't know, that we don't receive invitations to, and a couple of the school board members would love to invite some of the city council members to their events just to support them, but in explaining it to them, we don't get the invitation. So that is something that we can do a better job at, as you said, at communicating. And also with the budget, they have a different formula, we have a different formula. But I think that if the city has resources that can help Norfolk Public Schools, then we should partner. The other thing is, we talked about providing opportunities for Norfolk Public Schools so that they can have a continuing revenue. And we still have not gotten to that point that we have to find other ways that Norfolk Public Schools can support their needs along with what the city of Norfolk can provide for them as well. So I'm looking forward to us sitting down and doing some planning with Norfolk Public Schools. And it doesn't become a riffraff where we have the blame game, because that's really what it's come down to after the budgets were passed. It was a blame game, and explaining to the citizens how Norfolk Public Schools' priorities are set. It is not the city council's decision to decide how the money is being spent. If the teachers want a salary increase, then that has to be a priority for Norfolk Public Schools. And that's who they need to spend a great deal of time talking to and looking at the priority list for Norfolk Public Schools, not the city council.
Terry, anything else? It's just what, Winter, do you know how many times we met with the school board last year? I mean, it was at least maybe three times.
As a
So,
group.
As a group, I guess.
We had
I
two,
think
we had
we
two
met
in the
maybe more.
fall, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
think-
one or two in the
I
winter.
think we may have met,
Up to budget.
anyway,
And it came to the committee meeting also.
Right, we had the committee meeting.
and we did have a presentation on their budget that Michael Thornton made to us. And I remember talking to him after that discussion about the ADM, how did he come up with a
But if-
number of like 400 students when the year before was like 140?
But if
Yeah.
you talk to school board, they didn't know what we were doing, and I never heard to them, nobody has ever sat down and talked to me about the size of Willoughby and why that, all those questions. We never sat down and talked about that stuff and what their needs were for their budget and why.
Okay.
And maybe budget isn't the time to do that too.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
We have all these jobs that we're promoting that we're bringing to the city of Norfolk. But I think we have a disconnect because we say that we want to hire Norfolk residents. We announce that we have all the jobs, but we're not connecting to the community, to the people who can have a possibility at getting these jobs. We're not doing a good job of that, and I'm hearing it over and over and over again. So the question then becomes, do we provide a list, and I would like to see a list of all of the job possibilities, that groundbreaking ceremonies that we've had in the city, businesses that are going to be opening up in 2017, a list. Then from that list, provide some guidance as far as what jobs are needed. So Waterside is going to be opening up in 2017. Well, what types of jobs are going to be available? We have to do that. The other thing I requested is that we train the people, our people in the city of Norfolk, to go and get those jobs. Andy made a good point the last time when they were working on the main. Just in him walking, he noticed that people were going back and forth, and that they were all going to the Marriott Suites or something, Andy, that you mentioned. They were all staying at the hotel. And that was an indication to Andy that they did not live in our city. Why are they getting the jobs? And we have people right here in our city that we can change lives for in getting them jobs. We just need to help them and train them with the skills for the job openings for these jobs that we've announced. And we haven't done that. And we got to do it now because 2017 will be here shortly. There's that disconnect between the city and the citizens and the communities. We're announcing the jobs, but we're not doing anything to help the people get the jobs. And they want to know, and they want to know now, what do they have to do? Can you help train them to get the jobs? And we need our citizens, Norfolk, to get the jobs first before anybody else, because that was our major goal for bringing in the businesses to Norfolk, not only economic development, but for our citizens so that they can become productive citizens and we can better their communities. And we have to do that. And I would like to see that being done.
We could develop a stronger partnership with Opportunity Inc. to help do that. I mean, a lot of that job application piece that may be difficult for people who've been out of jobs, if it's an online application that, like paper applications don't exist anymore. Resumes, you have to upload it on a link or something, when you're looking for a job or whatever. And so we could partner with Opportunity Inc. to help people in that area of how, because some people are really at a loss as to how to apply. And so that's an opportunity for us to work with them and the employers that are bringing the jobs too.
I'll get a list for you and the council about what we do right now and where we'd like to be, where we should be, and what gaps we have and how we can improve on that, okay?
Maybe is that all?
Yes, sir, sorry.
Angela?
Waterside Drive at Harborfest. I know we shut down Waterside Drive, but we also had a cruise ship coming in. And I was told that there were several instances of old people who had to, just not groceries, but bags, luggage down Waterside Drive to get to the ship. And I think maybe, yes, I said old people, senior
Be
citizens.
very careful.
I say it in love.
People with more wisdom.
Yeah, people with more wisdom, but not as much energy to drag
We're gonna stop it at
Try it, go for it.
that. Angela just lost her
But to have
re-election.
people
Tell people.
to drag their luggage, you know, 2 or 3 blocks because I know it was the festival and everything like that, but maybe, I don't know how we apply discretion there with folks who are, if we have a cruise ship and we have a festival and we have the street blocked off and people have to get to the cruise ship terminal. You know, I don't know how we apply discretion there, but I think we need to do something to help with folks who have, you know, who need additional assistance
Yes, and we can always be better, so we did
and
have.
don't know Fred and all that jazz.
Yes, ma'am. So we did have Cedar Grove, and we were well aware of the cruise ship in conjunction with the 40th Harbor Fest. We did make accommodations through public safety officials that if a car came and was dropping off a passenger, several of which came through the loop, and that their bags, particularly for those that needed it, were dropped curbside. There were some who stayed in hotels and lived in those hotels, and then subsequently had walked up the street with that. So there were those instances.
Okay.
So we made every effort we could, understanding the crush of people plus a cruise ship, which adds to the vibrancy of downtown. But we can always be better, and we'll look to improve on this next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, cool, thank you. The other thing I have is there's a report of an after-hours auto fixing something or another at 429 Honaker, which is a residential area, which kind of goes back to my quest for some staggering of, you know, codes people or whatever, just to get, but there's a, they're doing something with auto mechanics in a residential neighborhood. That's not really good.
Code enforcement, we will be staggering those the first of the year. We are lining up the 3 sectors, but we have them staggered. They're going to be working on the weekend and weekends, so we will roll that out right soon after the new year.
New calendar, okay, as I say, new calendar year, new fiscal year, okay,
So
All right.
we have it all in place. We just need to go ahead and roll it out.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a little bit of a list tonight. First, I was very excited to see that the Fudgery is returning back to Waterside, and as a child who grew up in the 80s in Norfolk, that was where we went, and it's exciting to see some of the old returning back. So I didn't know if everybody knew that, but it was exciting to see that. Our dashboard, it's been a while that I know Andy pressed on this probably over a year ago about a dashboard on our big projects that are happening, and I don't know if you're developing it and it just hasn't come out yet, or maybe it's there and we just haven't been told.
Yeah, we covered it in Tina.
Where-
It's posted, yes, sir.
Okay, where is it? You said it's posted?
Yes.
Where?
We'll get you a link.
Okay, because I would like an update on the main, including the money that's, where we are with budget with that, expected opening, and what things have changed with the project even since our last update, when some controversy came up about the increase in cost or changes in the size. I think that we need to be updated on that as a major project in the city. And then same thing with school construction and how that's going, where we are with that, including change orders. And last time I got very vocal about changes that were being made, so tonight I'm going to get vocal about something else. I was upset to find out that the Wyland painting replica that was supposed to be on front of Ocean View is no longer going to be there. Apparently a meeting happened between the city and the school officials, and the developer, SB Ballard, said it's not their responsibility. Every rendering that I ever had on that school had a replica of the Wyland painting on the front of that school. and for it to change, and I'm hoping that this is not true, is upsetting to me, that we have now taken another thing that was shown to the community and now it's off the table. And what was said was that it's now the school's responsibility to put the Wyling painting on there, that it was never the developer's responsibility. And I know that there could be mixed words in this, but it's upsetting to me that this is another item that I've heard about that was promised. And like I said, in every rendering, I have Facebook posts where I put the rendering out of Ocean View on there. I've heard that they can't get the yellow bricks that were promised for, the construction, that they're going with a tan brick. And I've heard this now from 3 different sources have come back to me with this information. This kind of stuff, it bothers me. And I know things can change, I understand that. But when you start changing the look of the building, or things like that, I think we need to be consulted on that. And we were promised that change orders and things would happen. I don't need a response tonight on that. I'm doing all this because I love those memos we get now with all the responses back, Marcus. Grass cutting schedule, I know that we had a rainy April and May, which has probably put the crews behind. But I'm not as curious. I know that you guys are working hard to try to address that. But I would like to know what happened to our relationship with the sheriff's office with assisting us with this, because if we are that far behind and we're trying to play catch up, we've got to find ways to bring crews in to help get us back in. And if it means partnering back with the sheriff's office or whatever agencies that we were partnering with to do this, because what's happening is they are cutting grass, but they're skipping over weed eating and the other things that continue to help make our properties look good. And I understand they're pushing really hard to get back on that schedule. But those are the types of things that I'm noticing are medians where weeds are now growing taller than bushes. And I swear, at 6 years on council, every year I have to bring this up. And I know you guys are working hard, but we've got to do more. We've got to find more, because those are the little things that people are, bringing to my attention. Shopping carts, we used to have something with Public Works, and I don't know if we still do it, but Public Works used to go around and pick up shopping carts, and then we would bring them to a warehouse and make the grocery stores come and buy them back from us, I guess, a fee. Are we doing that still?
Yes, we are.
We are.
We do.
How are we hitting the Walmart area on Tidewater Drive?
We are.
Okay. All right, spend every day there.
Yeah.
Because there's especially by the bus stops, because everybody's bringing their shopping carts right to the bus stop and they're sitting on them. They're saving them there and sitting on them.
Even at the new one on
Yes.
Princess Anne Road.
Right, Ridgewell Avenue and Rippert Avenue, it's a road that runs along the military base, is in dire need of some kind of attention with asphalt. I don't know where it is on the schedule. Do we have crews going out and looking at lights that are out across the city? And can we get an update on that? Because there's lights are going out all over the place, and I want to make sure that we get our discount from Dominion. If we're paying for it, we get that money back. And finally, talking about the schools before, and there really we need to have a conversation with the school board at their first meeting. And I know we asked them to set the agenda, but I'm asking, and maybe this message will get back, to really talk about compensation of our teachers. I am so scared and worried about our district now and what other districts are doing to our teachers, taking them from us. It really hit me today when I got a phone call from a dear friend who is leaving Norfolk Public Schools to take a job in Portsmouth, and she's getting paid $6,000 more in Portsmouth for the same position. I would have never thought I'd hear the day that Portsmouth is paying their teachers more than Norfolk. And another teacher who wanted to come from Portsmouth to Norfolk but turned down the job because when Norfolk gave her the contract, it was $6,000 less than what they're paying her in Portsmouth. And so somewhere here, we have to have a conversation, because it should be a concern. It's not just a school board issue, but if we are losing quality teachers to surrounding districts, if we can't even stay competitive within our own region, we are in trouble with trying to get our schools accredited if we're losing all of our quality teachers. It breaks my heart to continue to hear our teachers and administrators that are leaving Norfolk and going to Virginia Beach and now Portsmouth even. And we're going to see that drain all the money that Norfolk is spending on professional development is going out the window. And I think as a council, we have an obligation, and the school board did come to us and say they wanted to give 3% raises, but they couldn't do it on their money, and only gave 2.5%, but they're still so far behind the other districts. It's just a concern for me at this point, and I think Mamie would agree with me on this as well, because she knows at the school level, she's seeing that we're losing some quality, dynamic teachers
Administrators.
because of not being able to compensate anymore. And I do have a concern when the school system tells us that the reason why people leave is not because of the money. That's not true anymore. I would love to see their data on that. It used to be, unhappiness, or it could be because of discipline in the schools or whatever. But there's a lot of people that would tolerate some of that if they got paid more. And I think that has to be a big conversation. Anyway, that's it.
Would it help if we did really a deep dive into what people are really paying, the other communities are paying, as far as, in what they're paying teachers who've been, the rates?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Different
Mr.
cities, to try to get the most up-to-date information possible, so we don't have just anecdotal evidence, but actually have real good, the best the state can provide, comparisons among what are, sometimes some of the rates that are set with, between this administration and some of the labor organizations.
Right.
As you know, that for years and years of experience, our teachers were paid at the very high end, and they started shifting some of the money out of the the early hires, the first and second year teachers, and then they tried to fix that. But anyway, I think it's a great question. I think we owe it to our community and to ourselves to be satisfied with an answer but we need the best information.
And I believe Dr. Boone did tell us that she was going to be doing a compensation study, but I think that it's not something that maybe we should be joining and helping them with this and getting data as much as possible. It is, and I know, Barkley, your daughter's a teacher, and you probably hear it from her as well, and your daughter-in-law. It's getting to the point of, it makes me nervous too with my children in the school system, and I'm hearing of their teachers that are leaving, and these are just outstanding teachers, and we don't want to lose them.
And the interesting thing is, as well, Mr. Mayor, is that this other city, Virginia Beach, is really after our teachers and our administrators. And we have administrators who have been keeping a distance with them for at least 2 to 3 years, and now they've gone to Virginia Beach after, Virginia Beach keeps hunting them down for 2 or 3 years. They're taking them.
Well, there's only so
Okay.
long you're gonna say no to more money.
Absolutely.
On my end, Marcus, 2 quick things.
Sure.
First of all, at least 2 of us, and Mamie and I have received a request for a designation of part of Philpotts Road to be named
I got it too.
Walter Green. I guess everybody got it. And I think that is certainly a request I'd like to honor.
Yeah.
So if we could have the clerk or the attorney draw something up, it's a designation, it's not the change of a name, so we could do that for Alveda while
And
she
it's
can
for the
enjoy it.
great work.
Yeah,
that
and
Mr.
Mr.
Green
Green
did
you
for
all
the
got the
city.
package, I guess, then, packet. So if we could have something prepared that we could vote on at the next meeting, okay? And then secondly, I don't want the moment to go by without expressing my thanks. I really just, as far as fest events went, as far as Harbor Fest went, 40th anniversary, the various comments that we've received, it really was a spectacular fest events. And we do a lot of things so well that sometimes gets lost. We don't, we just seem that we do them constantly, and we just don't stop to express our appreciation for it. But it was we had huge waterfront crowd. So of course, we were blessed by great weather at the same time. So it was one of those weekends we were just waiting for, right? So,
Paul,
okay, that's it.
I'm sorry. I gotta leave it
Okay.
like 8-ish or
Okay.
so tonight. But the other thing was,
Oh,
I
no,
also
not
wanted.
tonight. No way.
Yes, tonight.
Me too.
Tonight. Me
The,
too.
the other thing was, I just wanted to commend Marcus, when you talked about Waterside, it reminded me, and the chief on being proactive, given the situation in Florida, and having the city and the chief make a statement about their being proactive with regard to our known LGBT communities and community centers and activities and things like that. I think we did the same type of thing when the Charleston guy shot up the church, the black church, and the chief did the same thing on Wednesday nights with additional patrols on Wednesday night and Sunday mornings for quite some time, just to make sure that, you know, you were being proactive with the crazies. And so I just appreciate that statement going out with regard to you all being proactive in making sure that, you know, everybody is safe and feels as safe as they possibly can feel under the circumstances.
Especially during Pride Fest.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Thank you.
because there are crazies out there.
Thank you. Okay, you're gonna do the next
So,
presentation?
That's great. So, Mayor and Council, we have only 2 items tonight with about 30 minutes left, and I believe we're fine. So, we'll start off with the Glass Art Centric Boutique Hotel.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'll step away for a second. Members of council, on the docket for your consideration this evening is a cooperation agreement between the city and the EDA for the purpose of providing a revenue sharing performance agreement in support of what we're calling the Glass Art Centric Boutique Hotel redevelopment. And the revenue sharing performance agreement is what we used to call a performance-based grant. So the project is, or the subject property is on Granby Street, 201 Granby Street, 12-story building built in 1912. What the Glass Art Centric Boutique Hotel would be is a really unique product that would really capitalize on our competitive advantages and strengths as a center of leisure and tourism. It would really help to expand the infrastructure of tourism assets in the city. It would also capitalize upon our distinct identity as the cultural capital of the region. It would serve as an additional destination anchor to our urban core and really create some synergy with the other great projects that we know of that are going to be coming out of the ground between this year and 2018. And this will be completed in 2018, by the way. And significantly, it'll help to preserve and breathe new life into a really underinvested historic asset. One might argue that the Royster Building is really one of the historic gems in this part of downtown, so that's very significant. So just to define what a boutique hotel is, it's really a small, unique hotel offering a high level of service, and they're typically smaller number of rooms, and number of keys. So to put this in some context, you have hotels like Hotel Monaco, you have the Quirk in Richmond, which I know some of you have visited, and that's the kind of product this would be. One of its major distinguishing features would be the type of art featured in the hotel. It would be very glass-oriented, glass-centric, and in that sense, it would really have some nice synergy with our very nearby arts and cultural amenities and institutions, so Glass Wheel Studio in particular. It would really, because of its design and the glass elements, it would really provide an incredible sense of place in the downtown. And these boutique hotels are very often in the heart of a downtown or an urban core. And in Richmond, the Quirk is in the middle of the Arts District. The benefits, economic development benefits, are that this would provide permanent full-time jobs and direct revenue to the city in all of those categories. And we looked at this in the context of apartments. What's the comparative impact of this product versus apartments? And because any apartment project that would be done in this building, in this structure, would really take advantage of the tax abatement, the economic impact of apartments would be nominal. So the bottom line is that we believe that this use would be beneficial to the city for a number of reasons, not least of which is economic impact. And as I said earlier, it would really build upon our competitive advantages and strengths as the cultural hub of the region. We didn't and have not been evaluating this in a vacuum. One of the pieces of research, if you could call it that, that influenced our thinking on this is the DNC strategic plan, which identified priorities for downtown improvements and actions to guide the downtown development and guide the DNC over the next 5 to 7 years. And it identified a boutique hotel as a key market opportunity and enhancement for the city and for the urban core. Very good piece of work. I talked initially about the renewed focus on tourism and leisure, and there is that nexus, as we all know, between tourism and leisure and economic development, particularly business attraction. And so tourism is a major part of the regional economy, and expanding this sector is clearly to our advantage from a number of different perspectives. And I know this sounds like we're sort of beating a dead horse here, but this is very significant, and so we're deliberately reinforcing it, and that is that we have some real competitive advantages as the cultural hub of the region. So any major institution and major investment, like the Glass Art-Centric Hotel, really further strengthens that distinct advantage that we have. So the developer is SC Royster LLC, and the proposal is to create a luxury glass-centric hotel in the downtown, as we said before. And this would really be a world-class quality institution, and we want to reinforce the fact that this comes with a number of benefits, including new jobs in the middle of downtown. So the project is going to be an autograph collection, which is a Marriott brand. It won't carry the Marriott name, but the autograph collection is a Marriott brand. It's a Marriott flag. It will be a 4 or 5 star boutique hotel, so very, very, very significant. It'll be at the higher end of the food chain in terms of quality and offerings. This is going to represent a major renovation of the Royster building, former Royster building. It's a $27 million investment, and it'll come with, very unique and vibrant public spaces within the facility. $27 million investment, 60 jobs, and very significant direct economic impact, which I'll cover in the last slide. So we project $7.6 million in direct impact during the first 10 years, and $20.4 million during the first 20 years, so not insignificant at all. So the revenue sharing performance agreement would provide us with the vehicle for providing some gap support to the project over a 15-year period. We project that we will generate over 15 years $13.3 million, and we will net $8.3 million during that period of time. What we're proposing is a $5 million investment, which equates to 333, very precise, over a 15-year period. That's annually over a 15-year period. And so, you can see the breakdown here. We're looking at a 60-40 roughly revenue sharing split, or 61-39 to be exact. There is no city guarantee envisioned or required as part of this deal. And the bottom line is that if the project doesn't succeed, the revenue sharing performance agreement simply terminates. So this is not a risky proposition. So for the city council, as I indicated, the cooperation agreement with the EDA is on the docket tonight, and we recommend approval of that measure. And then at a later point in time, we will come back with some type of parking agreement that's similar to the other parking agreements that are in place with other downtown hotels. So with that said, I will pause for questions.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Manager, you have anything else?
No,
to add to it?
I would just say that it's, as Peter indicated, that this is something special for a center urban core like Norfolk. It's something that we do not have, and I think it just adds to the vibrancy, so I fully support moving forward.
This is in keeping what the council previous discussions have been with you, right?
This is exactly with the
No
previous
linkage with
discussions, with
anything
no
else here.
changes.
This is, no, go ahead.
I just would have to say, I know we don't have control of this, but I was so disappointed to see the article in the paper with the headline saying, city will pay $5 million to this hotel. And at some point, somebody needs to, I just don't understand why we can't get this, disconnect with a newspaper. And I had so many people tell me, you're paying another $5 million for this hotel? It's just infuriating. Whether we do a op-ed or something. I know you've talked to the editors before, but
It's the same thing they did with the military circle store.
it's just ridiculous.
It is.
Marcus got a call from me after 9 on that one.
Friday night.
This is, and Terry, that's a point well made. I mean, this is, we're getting money we wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and so we're just not getting, we're getting a little less, and later we'll get a little more, so. This is R30 tonight, and I could advance this on the docket for you, Madam Vice Mayor. That would be to get you here so we could vote on this. That'd be all right? Okay? Good. All right, next.
Well, great. Then the last item we have tonight is the update on short-term rentals.
Really? We're gonna get to.
Finally, yes.
No, make Adam come back again. It's just a bluff.
The record is 6.
Thank you, Manager, members of council. The good news about having this presentation continued a few times is I can give you sort of the latest up-to-the-date information, particularly regarding what is going on at the state level. But what I want to do for you tonight is walk through a little bit of what this short-term rental issue is. It's different for different localities, so I'll demonstrate a little bit of what other localities have tried to deal with. And then I'll finish with really the most important part of the process at this point, which is where the General Assembly is in the process of coming up with a statewide approach to how to deal with short-term rentals. So as many of you already know, the short-term rental concept is not necessarily something new. It's been around, but it has gotten a bit easier. It's the prospect of charging somebody to stay at your home or at a residence that you own on a short-term basis, something that's not the customary 1 year, 6 month, or 1 month lease. It's more of an issue now than it was before because of a couple of things. One of them is the ease with which it is to operate these short-term rentals. With the rise of the internet and the features to find folks who are interested in these properties and to list properties that are available, putting together a guest and a host is much easier now than it has been before. It's also somewhat of a new demand. The sharing economy, where people are comfortable getting into strangers' cars to get a ride somewhere, translates to this sort of activity as well. And so you find that people who really aren't interested in a hotel stay, but aren't in the market for an apartment, are in the market for something in between, and that's something that a short-term rental can provide. I say it's not something new because many of you are familiar with the more traditional vacation home model from the Outer Banks or Sandbridge, and the old style of having a management agency in charge of those rental units is the older version of weekly or short-term rentals. But now it's being done on a case-by-case and room-by-room basis. These are technically illegal in Norfolk. Because of our definition of what is a single-family dwelling, which requires that one family live in one dwelling unit for a minimum of 30 days. Any stay shorter than that is not single-family occupancy and therefore is not permitted in any of our residential districts. I've broken this down into essentially two kinds of operations because this is how it gets analyzed by the folks who are considering the regulatory statute. The first model is sort of the less offensive model. It's the single owner occupied residence, so the people live there, and then they have guests come and stay in usually a room or a couple rooms in their home. The second model is sort of the absentee owner, where the residence is vacant and then it's rented out, usually the entire house, although we are seeing in other cities where in multifamily dwellings, individual apartment units are being rented out on a short-term basis. Airbnb is sort of the leading, is sort of the big dog in the market. They essentially started the platform that has gained the most subscriptions and the most use, and they continue to grow worldwide. So I've included a little bit of more information about Airbnb. They are the ones who are driving the initiative at the state legislature to have a statewide solution to short-term rentals. This information is gathered from Airbnb's representative to the Housing Commission working with the General Assembly. 80% of hosts are operating that sort of less offensive owner-occupied, owner is at home form of short-term rental. Statistics that they gave us for Virginia 2015, just for Airbnb, there are other sites, but this being the largest, 4,500 hosts, an average of 150,000 guests during 2015. You can see that average stay, it's more than one night, but it's less than a week. And then each host making on average more than $4,000 during the year.
How do you capture that in taxes?
That is not being captured in taxes. Part of the state statute is to come up with a scheme to capture taxes, but that's one of the issues that bothers localities about this corner of the residential lodging
Like any other
market.
business, our tax collectors could endeavor to assess and collect it, but right now, it's probably more on a voluntary basis, so since it is a business, we also do require a business license, and so that we could have enforcement, and so that we have got some complaints and know some properties, and so that there is a limited opportunity now to collect the tax, but it's not uniform enough that we know that it's happening without enforcement.
You can't get a business
And you
license
can't
for
get it,
illegal
yeah.
business, can you?
Right.
If they're gonna be Airbnb in it out.
You
You can't get a business license for that.
you probably could not get a business license for it, but it is still taxable.
Right, I agree with that.
Well, whether it's legal or not, you have an obligation to pay the tax.
Right.
So,
That would be if you were
Not
honest.
federal and state income tax.
I mean, you're gonna have to, you gotta, whether it's legal gambling or illegal gambling, you have to pay the tax. So the real question here is how can Evans get those licenses out there to have the money collected?
But Andy,
That's what it
it's a
comes down to.
huge discussion at VML, the Virginia Municipal League too,
Well,
about taxes. How do we grab a hold of holding them responsible so that we can generate taxes, as you said?
And it's even though that's the average, the $4,300, there are many hosts who make much less than that, and there are a few professionals who are renting these out 360 days a year that are capturing most of that. I have some more information on that,
Okay.
but it's not, that's not the average, that's the average, but that's really not the mean or the typical
I have a question
income.
about something you said. You said that the hosts are operating single owner occupied residence, meaning that like I'm in my home and I'm renting out a part of my home while I'm still in it?
Correct. That's 80% of what's going on in Virginia last year.
Okay,
Is that it's almost like a boarder or a guest
okay.
as opposed to, a vacation home.
And it's worldwide too, right?
And to your
It is.
question, Andy, Evans does have the ability, if they file a Schedule C, if a person filed a Schedule C and claimed that income, Evans gets the state tax return, and then he can go after him for a business license. But then they would be denied a business license because that's illegal activity in the city of Norfolk.
So
That's a
to,
catch-22.
to understand what a big deal this has become, Airbnb starts out, from a couple of guys with an air mattress in San Francisco. But as of 2015, it's being valued with a capitalization of $24 billion. They were projected, I don't know the exact number, but they were projected last year to make $900 million in revenue. That's Airbnb's revenue. That's not counting everything earned by hosts. And then Penn State did a study recently, just came out earlier this year, looking at Airbnb activity in 12 major cities, and had some very interesting results. Just for those 12 cities, there was $103 billion of total revenue. That's for hosts and for Airbnb. 40% of that was generated by operators running 2 or more units. These are professional Airbnbers that are running these units essentially 365 days a year. And for those full-time rentals, that they are earning $143,000 a year per unit.
Wow.
So that's going on in those 12 major cities. What's going on in Virginia and what's going on in Norfolk? I did for you a sample search. This is, I just picked a week-long rental just to show what Airbnb would generate. This is towards the last week of July or first week of August for 4 guests to try to capture sort of those vacation home type rentals rather than the spare bedroom. So Richmond, a little bit smaller in population than Norfolk, with that particular search, comes up with 85 rentals available. Charlottesville, and I chose Charlottesville for a couple of reasons that I'm going to explain more later, but Charlottesville, about 1/7 the size of Norfolk, comes up with 70 rentals. Charlottesville has been dealing with this for a long time. They've had a short-term rental ordinance for a long time. As you can imagine, because it's a smaller city, but because it has these large influxes of out-of-towners for football games or for the beginning of the college year, the end of the college year, parents' weekend, they have a lot of this activity, and so they've had an ordinance for a long time. This isn't necessarily school year, but this is what this particular search kicks out for Charlottesville. Virginia Beach shows up with 33 rentals for the same period, and you can see they're along sort of the more tourist areas. And then Norfolk, for this particular search, only turned up 13 rentals.
Are those
Now,
popping up as nightly rates?
those are nightly rates, although the $70,029 does seem a little bit expensive
Might
to
be a
me.
typo. Okay.
So what's significant about this is these really are all in our Ocean View area. So of the 13, fully 10 of them are along Ocean View. And so that's why we're seeing complaints, and that's why we are sensing a proliferation, because it's really a concentration rather than a
And that's
proliferation.
that's not other
There's other
platforms.
yeah.
Correct, that's
Right.
just Airbnb. That's
Right.
not VBRO or bedandbreakfast.com or
Right.
any of the
So
other
we have
prominent
more,
ones.
I think we have more than 13,
Wow.
yeah.
It's entirely possible. So one of the things I did in trying to get an understanding of what localities have to deal with on this is I surveyed 15 ordinances, 5 in Virginia and 10 from other localities around the United States that have had ordinances for a while. And what we learned is that there are essentially 3 tiers of issues that localities try to figure out. And every locality has struggled with this. Austin has been through 2 or 3 iterations of their ordinance. San Francisco has been through 2 iterations, and their citizens are still not happy. Just the latest is that both Los Angeles and Chicago are considering putting in full commercial regulations for anybody who's having more than 90 nights of B&B activity. So a lot of localities, larger localities, are still struggling with how to do this. But the 3 tiers are basically tier 1, which is basic public safety. We want a permit. We want to know where these are. We want maximum occupancy limits. We want to make sure that there are essential public safety, smoke alarms, and those kinds of things in the building. Tier 2 is sort of the externalities, effects on the neighborhood. Do we have an emergency contact who we can get in touch with when something gets out of hand at the house? Or maybe perhaps the owner has to be present to start with. Do we have density limits that say you can't have more than 1 per block or 1 every couple of blocks? Do you require a special exception or a special use permit? And then in the very, very large communities, you see very robust ordinances that try to capture the taxes, the sort of guest registry regulations, the kinds of things that the hotel-motel industry is already dealing with. And this is an effort to even the playing field because there's so much activity in those locations, Austin or San Francisco, that they are actually distorting the economic market. So Airbnb has been pushing hard.
Adam, how much longer do you have?
I have about 3 minutes.
Yeah, because we have a full house upstairs. I really want to get started right at 7, so.
Airbnb is pushing hard. They've asked the state to come up with a statewide solution. They've already achieved something like that in Arizona. The state has passed a statute. It is not in effect yet because they are spending 1 year studying the issue. But all indications are that they are going to come up with a statewide solution. Their solution only addresses the person who's renting who lives in the home. So they are not interested in authorizing or legalizing the vacation home rentals. So during this period, here are some other details of the statute I don't need to get into, but the gist is that the Limited Residential Lodging Work Group is meeting through the 1st of December. They are going to come back with a report to the General Assembly. They are committed to limiting the scope of whatever the statewide solution is to principal residences. And so we are going to continue to work with our liaisons and with our lobbyists to try to work in and resolve some of these remaining issues regarding Airbnb so we can keep track of what's going on our level. One of the things that's not happening is that these platforms are not sharing their information with us. They are not telling us where these are, how much money individuals are earning at specific locations, and so our ability to keep track of them and police them is entirely an unfunded mandate that we have to bear. So we'll be working on this.
Is the city attorney's office working with Chief Goldsmith's office so that when a complaint comes in on a nuisance on these down in Ocean View, because we've had quite a few parties that have broken out, that it's being reported back to you guys for data tracking reasons to make sure that these are being documented, and also
Are you saying that to us?
how our police officers are responding to those? So are they just breaking up the crowds and then, warning them, or are they actually issuing a ticket or a nuisance to whoever's there, even if they're out of state, or marking that property as getting a citation of some sort, so that it's then in our system for tracking?
I think, and to add to that, I really think you all need to you can have some kind of summer intern go through the different platforms, find out what's being rented in Norfolk, and go after them. Go try to find any tax revenues, audit them, make it some way that you can recover monies that are owed the city. I really believe you can get that done this summer. You've got people here that can do that. Find them and then go after them.
Okay, I'm going to try to end it here. Thank you, Andy. And maybe in 2 weeks, Adam can come back and we can talk a little bit more about the short council discussion about it. Okay, we got a full house up here. You guys relax.
All escape.